Welcome, everybody, to part 37 of What If Dale Survived the Remake, and boy oh do we got a big episode today. This was not intentional to make this big to rush the rest of the series, but this is a major episode to get into the introduction of the saviors for Rick's group, Rick being the leader, and a very, very big twist near the end of the episode, which you guys are definitely, you can't miss this. So let's get into it. But before that, really quick, you guys should definitely hit that subscribe button. Not only because of this series, but how much this channel has improved this past month or whatever. You guys, old fans and new fans alike, you guys are definitely not going to want to miss the stuff and new system for the Next Topics YouTube channel. So I would definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that. And also I've upgraded to Pro on CapCut, just like I had it with Power Director, so you can get cooler transitions. Anyway, I'll shut my mouth here and we'll get right into the story. So the entrance into meeting Jesus and everything with Rick and Daryl, that pretty much goes the same. We get into that after Rick's officially become the leader and everything. That goes the same. Now you might be thinking the interaction is going to go the exact same way. Jesus is going to cause trouble over the truck, and they're going to lose the truck, and it's pretty much going to lead into the whole spiel with the saviors the exact same way. Well, if I did it that way, we wouldn't have a 40-minute episode, would we? So, we get Jesus being utterly cornered. First, by Beth, and then Morgan from another corner, Eastman from another corner, Dale from the next, and Owen, along with Rick and Daryl standing straight in front of Jesus after he ran into them. It was that moment that Jesus was screwed. So, yeah, whatever thing that Jesus was gonna do, try to steal the truck, whatever he was attempting, yeah, that's not gonna happen here. Jesus is utterly and completely screwed. They're keeping the truck, which is something that I've done with What If Eastman Survived, which I'll bring up here in a minute. But yeah, it's more important to note the fact that with this much changes and development with the group and everything and all these different people, yeah, they would definitely have a system set up like this, unlike people just accompanying Rick and Daryl or something like that, or Shane meeting Jesus. It's much different here with a unified effort. Now, to get on with the truck, it's not that big a deal getting it, even though there is a heck of a lot of stuff on it, which I stressed a lot in What If Eastman Survived. But it was more important in that story because they had way less to go with whenever it was in that story. But here, they have a fair amount. So having this just means that they have a whole lot more. It doesn't mean that they're like in desperate need of it. So it's just a very big upgrade. Jesus would later apologize for this after being brought into Alexandria, reluctantly to only a few people, only a few, because you gotta think about how the group is. And he would admit that he was trying to take the truck because his community and his people need it. He wouldn't get into too much, but all he asks for is help to find his people, Dr. Carson and them and such, and to go to his community, and maybe they can work out a deal or trade with the leader, Gregory. And along with everybody else, since the group is much different here, Rick would agree with this, and everybody else would too. Because if they're dealing with another group just like they had to deal with one now, Rick is more open to finally stepping out of the comfort zone of Alexandria and dealing with people that are threats to them, even if they're meeting new communities they don't know might be a threat to them also. It's different now. You get what I'm saying? But anyways, Rick and everybody else are up for it. So, we get into the entrance of Hilltop. Now, you guys might be asking yourselves, in the original, the group consisted of such: Rick, Jesus, Daryl, Glenn, Maggie, Michonne, and Abraham. Well, since Michonne is dead, and Abraham is dead, who goes in the place of them, and with a much different group, who swaps out whose rules, and who goes to Hilltop as a whole? Now, this particular part of production took a minute to think about, because I wanted it to be good around this part, just for this part specifically. It's not going to do much, but it still matters. The group would consist of Rick, Daryl, which those would be the only two, ones from the original who went, and the additions and swap outs would be Eastman, Dale, Morgan, and Beth. Eastman and Dale because, once again, high council members, and they've been around since, pretty much near the beginning / entrance into the middle of the story. Morgan, obviously, because he's had a dramatic role in this story, and Beth to show that she's recovering more and being with Daryl and such. Now, when we get into the Ethan situation, that's dealt with really smoothly. Rick just knocks Ethan to the ground with one of his weapons and makes sure to hold him there at gunpoint so he can't move. And Eastman would just one-tap Andy, the other dude, so that way he can't get involved. So that situation is dealt with handily, resulting in neither one of them dying or getting severely hurt. So, after that, the deal with Gregory is the next case that we need to talk about. Gregory would obviously not hit on Maggie here because she's not here. So, the question is, what kind of deal or conversation would be had? Because I'm pretty sure I had Eastman and Gregory, or maybe just Maggie and Gregory like I did with Eastman's story. But here, I really feel that this is an opportune moment for Dale to speak out to another community besides Alexandria and Woodbury. So, he would talk to Gregory about the plan that they have. Specifically, he wants to know about the Saviors, specifically. He wants to know about them and what they did to this community to make them so deprived, and their people and such. And he says that if Gregory can tell him about the Saviors, maybe their leader, just some specifics to work off of, maybe they can go from there and help the communities out. So that way they have extra people at their disposal and they don't have to lose anybody here at the community, along with the resources which they can see are growing very slim. So, after Dale says this, Gregory is obviously not convinced, being a jerk, and he decides to say, what can an older person like you offer me? And this would be kind of an insult. I don't think Gregory would say this specifically, but he would basically insinuate that because of Dale's age that he's pretty much acting like a coot. You get what I'm saying? This is something like Gregory style, and he's not convinced that Dale is speaking to him in a manner that's convincing to help his side, and thinks that him and whatever communities, they're just working for themselves. And Dale said that if he was a true leader and understood other people, not paying attention to his insults, because he's heard worse and seen worse, look at him. He says that if he was a true leader and such, he would take any help that he could get to end whatever threat is going on. Especially, and he lowers his tone, with some of the people here having very obvious conditions. And he would hold up his arm slightly, because remember, if he holds it up all the way, it shoots. He holds up slightly to make it noticeable enough his shotgun arm in very finite condition. And Gregory, at this point, whatever ill manner that he thought of Dale or anything, that's thrown out the window, but he's still keeping up his impression because he's, Gregory. And after this, Dale, feeling like he's made some headway here, continues. He begins to say, or continues to say rather, that if the Saviors are a really big threat, they can deal with them, but it doesn't have to end in a war, is what he's trying to say. Because from what he has seen and heard, they're not like any other... They're no different than any other bad group that they've come across, especially the freaking governor. And he feels like they could deal with them pretty easily, all things considered. Or at least make a deal with them. He does not want to kill them. Don't get me wrong here. That is not Dale's intent. Okay? I cannot stress that enough because, because of who he is, obviously. And it's more or less just him wanting to try and avoid killing them as much as humanly possible. And to try and make a deal with them of sorts to help Hilltop, maybe help their side, and to save Alexandria from a future problem. It's pretty much a guarantee for everyone to come out on top. You get what I'm saying? But Gregory, being himself, he is more convinced now, and definitely a little bit more on board with this, but he feels that the overall end game should be to stop them, but even he finds this preposterous to try and either make a deal with them or even kill them. Like, either sounds like preposterous, and he brings this up with Dale, and it's like he appreciates who Dale is and what they've come here to try and do for them, but he just does not find killing the saviors or trying to reason with them, he does not find either situation reasonable. I mean, in this situation, Gregory would actually be very right, because I cannot stress enough the groups in the original Walking Dead that could not be reasoned with, especially in this story. And Dale would definitely agree with this also, because, yeah, the things that they had been through just to try and keep humanity. He had to lose a freaking arm and had a freaking bullet stuck in his eye, almost turning him into a freaking dark monster. So yeah, he understands, but he insists on Gregory listening to him, because they have been through, as he can most likely see, pointing to his arm again, and pointing out a little bit of what happened to his eye, because I'm sure there would still be like a mark there or a scar, that they have been through enough that this group should not be a problem. And if they are a problem, they'll deal with it. Dale is open to conflict in some fashion, but he miles it down to trying to resort to it as the last possible solution. You get what I'm saying? So, after that, Gregory would just say, all right, do whatever you think is best or whatever, and he just walks away. And after Rick hears about this and they all return to Alexandria, Rick is open to the idea too, because this is a much different Rick. And he agrees with conflict as the, last possible thing. Because they haven't had to resort to conflict besides the Wolves and Pete. And it's been pretty mild. And besides Carol, obviously. Rest in peace. And he admits that, yeah, this is a pretty clear-cut plan. They just have to go about it the right way. But now, here comes the big thing. The big thing that they need to worry about. Who is going to go to either A, make the Saviors surrender, or shoot them, or both, or whatever. It doesn't matter what the end result is. It matters as to who gets the job done, because not everybody's going to want to do this. He's got to keep that in mind. And he is more open to that here. So, who goes? Rick obviously is number one. Dale would be the second one. Following Owen, Morgan is actually going this time, like I've had in several stories. Daryl and Glenn, along with Beth, would actually tell Maggie to stay behind, because obviously her pregnancy would be known at this point, very luckily that they've survived this long, for Maggie to get pregnant, because Woodbury, cannot stress enough, and Maggie would then fight on to Beth just recovering her memory, and she should be staying behind too. But Beth says that she's all right, and that Maggie is the main concern right now, because she has a freaking kid growing in her belly. And if Shell, that other savior chick that was on Paula's side, almost cut Maggie by the stomach in the original, think of what could happen under different circumstances. And funny enough, that's actually teased for a future story. I just gave away a plot for a future story. Jesus, Rosita, Spencer, Tara, Heath, Mika, along with Megan, and Tyrese and Sasha would also go. Sam is actually going to be going here. I never really included him. And then we get to the last one on the list, or like the one that you would think would be on the list, not even. Ron. And yeah, Rick and Jesse. Rick fully, like, co-parenting and, like, on the level of parenting with Jesse on the fields of Sam and Ron. They both agree that Ron going would be an absolute worst idea. Last episode and recently, because they can't break the fourth wall. I don't know why I'm getting into that, but still. Anyway, they know that they had to fight the freak out of Ron to not kill Rick or Rosita for what happened with Pete. So him going, that would be an awful idea. And Jesse would agree with this, and Rick would also say she should stay behind too. And Jesse actually agrees with this also, very much to Rick's surprise. Not only to keep Ron from doing anything bad, but so that Rick can watch over Sam whenever they go, and it just feels better as a whole. Rick feels like she's holding something else back, like there's something else she's hiding from him as to why she's not going. But before he can figure out what that is, or before he can pry Jesse for information, or Jesse possibly admit what else she might be hiding, they both hear a noise in the house, a small stumble from in the next room. They both turn their heads, and out of the corner, behind the wall, Pete emerges, bloody, but stronger than ever, and alive. He pushes and slams Rick against the wall, strangling him and punching him repeatedly, time after time. And Rick and Jesse, one, being off guard, and two, not expecting Pete to be back from the freaking dead, supposedly, because they thought he died in the freaking house. Rosita beat the life out of him. But, yeah, he's alive, strangling Rick, Jesse staring back in utter fear and awe that Pete is alive. Pete is just strangling and punching Rick repeatedly, time after time, angrily. He shouts out to Rick in a voice that would make Pete, like you guys have said, a true horror movie villain. You really thought that leaving me in that house was a good idea? No. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Now, I'm going to kill every one of you, starting with you, Rick Grimes. And he continues to strangle and choke the frick out of Rick, punching him and kicking him repeatedly too. He is utterly, completely destroying Rick. And then, while he's doing this, he cockingly turns his head while he's doing this, and in a very cocky and very upright tone says to Rick, "Leaving me alive was the last mistake you and everyone else in this community is ever going to make. After you, I'm going to kill that chick Rosita for beating me half to death. And then everyone in this community, including your daughter, will bow to me. They will listen and utterly kneel to me." And this would make Pete the darkest I have ever made him in any story. And I bet you guys will all agree on this. Jesse, finally snapping to her senses, grabs onto Pete's shoulder and arm, trying to rip him away from Rick, but Pete is just merciless. And once Jesse has tried too much, become too annoying, and just can't seem to budge Pete away, Pete doesn't just freaking slap her to the side. No. He shoots a gun straight in to the direction of Jessie, thinking that it was her head, and for all we know, it could be her head. He was just trying to get her away, and he just shot the gun straight into the direction of which he thought her face was, not really caring about her. And while he's still staring bloody and furiously at Rick, he just says, turning his eyes just a little, "If I can't have you, nobody can. You are not even worth thinking about to anyone in this community anymore, let alone me." And with that, any attention that he was giving to Jessie in that moment just goes square back to Rick. And yeah, this is a very, very serious and shocking moment. And Rick, trying to struggle and squirm his way out of Pete's grasp, sees this, but before he can even grasp what's happening, Pete knows he's about to get angry, obviously. And just like Merle did in Destiny's, he had managed, while beating the frick out of Rick and choking him, to get his cuffs. And he stops his attack and gets the cuffs and cuffs both of Rick's arms and kicks him down to the ground. And at that point, Rick is so bloody and he needs to actually catch his breath. And he's so bloody and injured, he can't even think straight right now. Because besides Woodbury, because Father Gabriel's church ain't got nothing on this, besides Woodbury, this is the most he's ever been injured. And Pete says, this could have all been avoided had you people just minded your own dang business. Had you just left this Anderson family to ourselves. But no, you people had to put your noses where they didn't belong. And then your little friend Carol had to pay the price. And now, after all of this, now my own wife had to pay the price, whom you stole from me along with my children. That's why your little friend Carol had to die and my own wife had to die. But I know that my son Ron is loyal to me, and once Sam sees all this, he'll have to be suckered into the fold too. You will be last on my list to die, Rick Grimes. First, I'm gonna get that chick Rosita for nearly beating me to death, and I'll do the same thing to her that I did with your little gal pal Carol. And then every other person is going to watch as I rip the life away from you. And then this community is all mine. I think I did a pretty freaking scary Pete impression there, huh? And Rick, he isn't listening to Pete. Oh, he's listening, but he's not taking it in. All he can think about is Jesse's lifeless body that is sitting across the hallway. He's staring straight at it. He's not even looking at Pete. And he's also injured, and he's got to catch his breath from being strangled and beat half to death. And coming to terms with the fact his handcuffs were stolen, and he was just cuffed. So he is far from listening to anything that Pete's saying. But little does Pete know, killing Jesse was the last thing that he should have done. Because now Rick's getting a little bit of, PTSD from everything that he had been through. Jesse's death flashes before him, getting into a relationship with her finally, and a good one. And then Lori and her death right in front of his eyes at Woodbury, along with his own son, Carl's death, which he caused and didn't even mean to. And the boom of that rocket launcher, and everything that transpired afterwards, almost making him leave everyone who had come back seemingly alive. Except Carol, who ended up dying, but that's beside the point. And Shane, who had become from a friend into a foe. And how he and Dale had to work together, mainly him, to end his best friend's life. All of that flashes before him, and in a big twist. The old Rick, the monster that had seemingly died down after he had finally come to terms with everything, has finally come back. Pete doing this was the last thing he should have done, and the biggest mistake, as you are about to see in a big minute, and why the episode is so long. Rick is now focused on only one thing: pure, unbridled rage. And he's starting to get angry, coming to terms with all of this, and he is gritting his teeth and telling Pete that he is going to mercilessly, completely, and unadulteratingly kill him. And Pete, after seeing Rick snap back out of whatever trance he was in and getting injured and all that, what he just did to him, he's like, no, Rick, you're not going to kill me. You are bloody, beaten, broken, and you are cuffed. You can't do anything to me. And even if you were able to, you don't have the superiority that you once did when you got here and under Deanna's little wing, her little monkey puppet. You are a shell of your former self. I don't care if you think that you're going to kill me or if you want to somehow make peace with me. Any transitioning and talking we once had is done. And if you keep it up, we'll go out to the streets right now while your friends are getting ready for whatever little escapade they have going on, and you can die right in front of them along with Rosita. And he stares at Rick menacingly while he does this, but whatever big moment that Pete had here, that's slowly dying down because nothing can prepare him for what Rick does next. Rick goes from saying he's going to kill Pete and gritting his teeth and getting angry to yelling to the high heavens. He yells out in the same voice, that same voice even bigger than what he had back at the Woodbury town when everybody had gotten shot. He yells out in rage and is just yelling profanities and just yelling in general. And Pete, he isn't amused. He just knows that Rick's throwing a hissy fit and that he can't do anything. He's cuffed and bloody and broken. And not even he could move for some time whenever he was bloody and almost beat to death in that house. What could Rick do in this situation? Oh, he should really have reconsidered that thought process. Because after yelling for a good moment, Rick just stops. And he looks straight into the eyes of Pete. His eyes, after a very long moment of yelling, turn blood red. And this is like whenever someone says they get so angry they see red, this is turning the phrase literal, turning the eyes red, just like at Father Gabriel's church. And this actually scares Pete. And with this, Rick doesn't just yell after this, he roars. He actually roars. And this actually terrifies Pete beyond belief. And with this, Rick begins to forcefully and completely, with superhuman strength, mess with his cuffs and begins to stand up and move his cuffs, and with a mighty heave and a forceful pull with his arms, he snaps the cuffs off. And this would be an incomprehensible level of superhuman strength. Because, yeah, it would take a power of superhuman and above to break a pair of handcuffs off, especially ones that are like big and intended for the user not to be able to escape them. And Pete, he cannot process what he is just witnessing. Not only did he see Rick just go from being utterly broken and bloody to doing this, but his eyes, those eyes looking straight at him, that blood-curdling rage that he had just had, that was nothing. And the fact that he broke the cuffs. Pete, he is frozen in fear. And Rick grabs the closest weapon to him and in his belt, the machete. And with this, whatever strength that he had just lost, Rick is invigorated 1,000-fold. No, frick that. 1,000,000-fold. This is angry Rick, but to a freaking... I cannot explain how much angrier Rick is than any other version of him in any story and moment in this story. And with this, Rick gets his machete and mercilessly chops away at Pete. His head, his body, his freaking legs, it doesn't matter. He chops at Pete everywhere and doesn't stop. He keeps on going. Just like with Gareth in the original story. But, unlike that, he doesn't stop until Pete is not moving anymore, literally. He's making dead sure that Pete is actually going to die here. If beating him to death wasn't enough from Rosita, he's gonna make freaking sure that Pete dies here, cutting every single piece of him up, off, it doesn't matter. Rick doesn't care. All he can think about is blood-curdling rage and killing Pete. And after seeing Pete not move anymore, slicing skin and clothes and parts and everything off that he could think of and just everything in general, oh, Rick doesn't stop there. You thought that was enough? Oh, he doesn't freaking stop. He pulls out his Colt Python and begins shooting rapidly at every mangled, bloody, and freaking messed up part of Pete that you could imagine which would be at this time, and doesn't stop. He doesn't care if Pete is most certainly might be dead after this. He's making dead sure that every single part of him looks like just nothing. Like it looks incomprehensible to the point that Pete is left as a bloody freaking nothing, basically. And only then does Rick stop and come out of the house. Now, Dale, Morgan, Tyrese, Eastman, and Aaron, along with everybody else in the community, they would have heard the commotion in the house and everything else, along with Daryl, especially wondering what was happening, and they were literally about to go to the house, Rick and Jesse's house, to see what the frick was going on, because it sounded like a lot. There was roaring and screaming and shooting and, like, what was going on in there? And Daryl is the first one mainly to question Rick on this. Like, what the freak happened in there? And they, like I said, they were about to go and, like, see what was going on, but Rick stepped out right at the first opportunity. But Rick doesn't answer for a long moment. And everyone can see Rick is looking a mess, and he is looking unrecognizable and furious to the point where he can't even think straight anymore. He is just pure on angry, even after killing Pete. But he finally regains his composure and says that leaving Pete in that house was their biggest mistake. He came back, and he doesn't blame Rosita for this. At least he's trying not to. But he says that leaving Pete alive was literally the worst mistake they could have made. Pete came back, and as they can see what they did to him, but that's not the big part Jesse was shot. He doesn't know if she's dead in there, but he shot towards her freaking head. He saw that, and he can only presume that she's gone. And Sam obviously is very broken about this, and Ron, he doesn't know what to think about this. On one hand, cool, his father's back, because we all know how Ron was freaking on his side all the time and was a freaking brat about it. But hearing that his mom died over this conflict and everything, and Rick killed him, oh, Pete doesn't care if his father was the main culprit. All he can think about is that Rick was the cause now. Screw Rosita. He's now going to kill Rick and Rosita. Basically, his dad. And he is just as much of a jerk. We all knew that, right? And he goes over, gun in hand, and boom. He doesn't shoot Rick, but Rick shoots Ron. Because at this point, Rick doesn't care anymore. Ron and Pete signed their own freaking destitutes. He gave Ron opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and Pete didn't deserve one, and now Ron didn't deserve one either. He sees that now. Because of Jesse, because of Carol, because of Rosita. Well, she didn't die, obviously, but because of everything that had just happened, he knows that he should have killed Ron, along with making sure that Pete was dead. If so, Carol maybe somehow, someway wouldn't have died. Maybe freaking Jesse would still be alive. And he says to Ron's lifeless corpse, I should have killed you along with your father when I had the chance. Had I done it, your mother would still be alive. And Sam, he would just be utterly crying at this point, and everyone would try to hold back or stop Rick, but because of the conflict and everything that had just happened, they ain't gonna stop this man. Especially knowing what he had just lost and knowing what he lost out there. And after this, Rick looks to everybody and shouts to them all, playtime is officially over. Whatever deal that they were going to have sparing the saviors, that's done now. They're going to kill them all. If this didn't teach people that people are maniacs, that they are monsters, they don't know anything. And if they want to do this, they have to kill them all. And with this monstrously insane, unrecognizable Rick back in the fold, 1,000,000 times worse than he was, how will this go into the conflict with the saviors? Can he even be controlled like he was? Will he ever find happiness? And is Jessie actually dead? Or did she somehow, someway miraculously, like Pete, somehow survive because of the circumstances? Will Sam ever recover? And will everybody else be able to control Rick and maybe stop him from killing, since he's pretty much the only one who wants to kill them all? Or is this the actual end of the nice Rick Grimes as a character? Now, I truly 110% above beyond belief hope that you freaking guys enjoyed this episode. And now I think you guys understand why it had to be this big. It's not to rush the series, oh no. It was to show that this is a big, pivotal moment. Because it literally came out of nowhere. Not only is this the entrance into the Saviors in a very dramatic tense, but we don't know what happened with Jessie. She could be dead or alive for all we know. Pete came back, which you guys probably could have inferred, because I did kind of tease it. I know I've been giving obvious teasers, but it's kind of the point for half of these parts. And there's literally no telling if anyone's going to be able to stop Rick, or if there's any coming back from like this point in Rick's character development. But I hope you guys truly enjoy this. I mean, how could you not? And stay tuned for the next episode.